Hi, class. I really enjoyed reading the poem, The Primal Scream of the Universe to you, and I'm not sure how you reacted to it, but it was an important poem for me during this long pandemic. Quite a few of you emailed me that you had trouble with question number 3, so I want to talk about what I'm actually asking you to look for, and don't worry about if you have the wrong answer. We're dealing with poetry, and it took me 3 readings to understand this poem fully as your teacher. So if you're struggling, I think that's the fun of poetry. So question 3 asks, what insights about the cycle of life does Tracy Smith express? What I mean is, how is this poem actually about life and death? That's what I'm really asking. And then the second part, cite specific textual evidence from the text to support your ideas. What I'm just asking is, find lines of the poem that seem to be about life or death, heaven, where do we go when we die, and explain your interpretation of those lines. So that's all I'm asking in number 3 is, where are lines of the poem that hint that this is not just about the kids yelling up in the possible apartment above? Now, if you're having trouble understanding this poem on a second or third reading, let's look at it visually. It's in 4 stanzas, and stanzas are groups of lines that work like a paragraph. And you know a stanza because there'll be a bigger space between them. There's 4 stanzas in this poem. And I love the way the poet kind of breaks up those lines between those stanzas. Sometimes the start of a sentence will start at the end of the line of the last line of the stanza, and then it'll continue into the 4th stanza's first line. It's just really cool the way she builds her poem. So I drew out the poem like a comic strip. If we think of stanza 1, I'm going to read a couple lines of it, and I'll show you what I drew. 5 p.m. on the nose, they open their mouths. I still picture this like an apartment. The speaker of the poem hears at 5 p.m. the kids being really loud above her. That's why I've got the clock. I should have drawn the crystal possibly breaking. Second stanza. Maybe the mother is still proud of the 4 pink lungs she nursed to such might. Well, the poet is asking, why isn't the mom telling them to be quiet? Maybe all that loud racket, she's kind of ironically kidding that she's proud of how big those kids have become after nursing them as babies. And remember, babies and young children are quite loud. Later, the stanza says, perhaps if they hit the magic decibel, the whole building will lift up and we will ride to glory like Elijah. That biblical allusion, remember Elijah in the Bible, rides the chariot up to heaven. So this is where the poem gets kind of mysterious. I drew a picture of the speaker of the poem imagining the mom and imagining their apartment rising up to heaven. And this is where the poet really explores this idea of life and death in section 3, the 3rd stanza. Most people seem to be quoting parts of the 3rd stanza for their question number 3. Let me read that stanza again to you. Whether it is our dead in Old Testament robes, or a door opening onto the rolling infinity of space, whether it will bend down to greet us like a father, or swallow us like a furnace. What is the it of those sentences? I think it's heaven. Whether heaven is going to be like the dead in robes like the old times, whether heaven is like a door opening, or a furnace that swallows us, or a father to greet us. Then the poet says, I'm ready to meet what refuses to let us keep anything for long. That line reminds me of from ashes to ashes, dust to dust of the Bible. We can't take our possessions back with us when we die. It's a mystery we really don't know until you cross over. Now, the 4th stanza, well, by the way, I didn't really know what to draw for that, so I just drew a cloud. Anyways, the 4th stanza starts off with, how mean our racket seems beside it. Basically, how small my own sounds must seem compared to, well, what's the it of that sentence? I don't really know. Is the it the kids being really loud? Or is the it something bigger that we can imply? Dare I say life or death? More lines of the poem. My stereo on shuffle, the neighbor chopping onions through a wall. All of it just a hiccup against what may never come for us. What is always waiting to come for us might be time passing and death. That's how I look at that line. The poem stanza continues, and the kids upstairs still at it, screaming like the dawn of man, as if something they have no name for has begun to insist upon being born. If we go back to the title, the primal scream of the universe. Well, that primal scream, that very evolutionary first scream, kind of refers to the kids up in the apartment, doesn't it? It also refers to more. What would the birth of the whole universe look like? Was it like a primal scream? And I think the poem itself is a primal scream within the poet. The speaker of the poem is reflecting about life or death, something we don't control. And while the poem is very calm, in a way, don't we all feel like we're screaming as we try to live our lives? When you're looking for the right line for chapter 3, for question 3, you look in stanza 3. I think you're going to find something that refers to life or death in there. Good luck.